So let's go ahead and explore collections library in Dart. First thing we're going to talk about, of course, is the list. Now, Dart, of course, is supposed to be a modern language, which means it has to be succinct and very straightforward, if we will. So you notice that the syntax it's very concise and easy to read, right? So in this case here, for us to create a list, right, an array, if you will, we just say var. I want to call this list. And then we're going to create our square brackets as such, and then inside that's where we actually put all of the items. Now this is the deciding moment, right? Because whatever we put first, it will dictate what types this list will hold. So if I go and say 1 and say 2, say 3, say 4, and then I say 10, let me make these numbers a little bit different. 10 like that. There we go. Now we have our list. That's it. Now, how do we access, for instance, each one of these? We said that in order for us to access, we have to go and find where each item lives. In this case, what index we want to access. So we know all starts at index 0. So this is going to be index 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I say I want number 2, that means I have to go to index 1, right? So I can go say print, and I say list. In order for me to get the index, I also have to use the square brackets as such and pass in 1 index. So I'm saying here, go to list variable and fetch whatever is inside index 1, which means 2. We should get 2. Okay, run. And there it is. There's 2. Obviously, if we want the last one here, we can just go ahead and say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and go ahead and say 4. It's going to run. We should see 10. Now, the cool thing about the list is that there's a few methods or properties we can actually retrieve from the list, right? A few methods that gives us information about the list. One of which is the length. So I can actually come down here. I can say print. I can say list. The moment you say dot, look at this. It turns out we can also add, remove, last, and so forth. Like I said, everything in Dart is indeed an object. This is why we have these capabilities. But what we want here is just the length, right? Now, what is the length? Well, the length is how many items we have inside of our list. Now, length and index are totally different things. Now, index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? How many spots we have? We have 1 spot, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots. Right? So if I run like this, we should see 5 because that's the length. If we add another number, 56, well, you will see that indeed we'll have 6. Now, because we have this information, we can actually find the length of our array or our list here. Well, we could do certain things. We can actually go ahead and say, let's say if I want to get the last item of this array list, let's suppose that we have thousands of items, thousands of numbers inside of this list. Well, we could just go ahead and say list.length minus 1. That would give us the last one. Let's see. Is that true? There we go, 56. So what this is doing is that, well, we know that inside of our straight or square brackets here, we have to pass the index, right? Well, in this case, we're saying, okay, the index has to be the length of the entire list. What is the length? Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And we're gonna subtract 1 to get the last one. So if the length is 5, then the last one is gonna be the 4th item. If the length is 6, right? If this is 6 minus 1 is 5, which is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 56. Okay, that's a trick that you can always use if you want to get the last item in an array or list in this case. The next obvious thing to learn to do is how do we then iterate through a list? That's what's going to happen often, right? We want to be able to iterate through our array or any array. Well, simply we can go ahead and say for Okay, for the loop, I'm going to say int I set to 0. I'm now, check this out, I'm going to say I is less than list.length, because I know the length, right? Because we have this opportunity to get the length of our list. That's very handy. That way we don't have to worry about the length constantly, actual length of the array. So if the array changes the length to 2000, then we don't have to come here and change the number, right? And I can go ahead and say I plus plus, and then I can just go ahead and say print. I can make it a little bit more special. I can say index I contains an expression here. It's going to say list, and I'm going to pass the I as such. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the length of this array. I keep saying array, but the same thing. Let's call list to be more congruent with Dart language. The length of our list here, so if it's 6, the length 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so it's going to be while for I is less than 6, we're going to keep incrementing, and inside here we're going to go ahead and pass the I. So if it's 0, it's going to be 0 contains, and go to the 0th index, it's going to be 10, and it goes back and forth until this is not true, okay, which will break our for loop. Give it a run, and there we go. It says index 0 contains 10. Is that true? Yes. Index 1 contains 2, 13, and so forth. 56 is the index 5. We can be a little bit more creative here. We can go ahead and say, for instance, if at the top here, I'm going to say if list I, right, ampersand 2, or percentage I should say, is equal to 0. Remember this. I'm going to say print list I. It's an expression, so we need to make sure contain is multiple of 2. In fact, let me be succinct here. I'm going to just put it there. Say else, like that, and say and is not multiple of 2. Okay, so what are we doing here? So as we go through our list, we're going to go ahead and fetch all of the numbers inside of each index, and we're going to check to see if it's multiple of 2, right? Remainder here, remember? If it's multiple of 2, we're going to say that item is multiple of 2, and we're going to print it. Else, we're going to say index I contains that number and it's not multiple of 2. Just a very simple little thing here. Let's see. Get rid of all of this so we don't end up with a lot of junk. Okay, let's give it a run. Okay, 10 is multiple of 2. Let's see. 10 is multiple of 2? Is indeed. 2 is multiple of 2. Index 2 contains 13 and is not multiple of 2. Index 2, 0, 1, 2. Yes, 13 is not multiple of 2 indeed. 24 is multiple of 2. 10 is, 56 is multiple of 2. There we go. Very cool. So we're able to create a really quick, fun little application here that leverages lists and for loops and, of course, the module or the remainder operator here. Very cool. So go ahead and play around with this concept, and I will see you in the next video.